2 years ago, my world fell apart. I discovered that my husband had cheated on me, but the pain only deepened when I learned the other woman was my younger sister. To make matters worse, they even sent me an invitation to their wedding, and my mother was planning to attend. It felt like a double betrayal, not only from my husband but from my own family. My name is Teresa, and I used to work at the same company as my husband, where I was also his boss. At first, Thomas seemed a bit unreliable, but he was earnest and charming. I took it upon myself to train him, guiding him through the complexities of our work. In the beginning, he was anxious about the unfamiliar tasks, but over time, we developed a strong bond. I remember the thrill of when he asked me out. It was our first step beyond professional boundaries, and my heart raced at the thought of it. We began dating, and 7 months later, he was excelling in his role, even earning praise from my colleagues. His success felt like my own. Not long after, he was promoted and moved to a different department. Shortly after that, he proposed, and we had a beautiful wedding. My parents and my younger sister, Judy, immediately warmed to him, especially Judy, who was the same age as Thomas and bonded with him quickly. She had just ended a relationship and often expressed how envious she was of our marriage. After our wedding, I continued balancing my career and home life, supporting Thomas in both. But about a year into our marriage, I started noticing a change. Thomas began coming home later and later. This was the beginning of a series of events that ultimately led to our divorce and the painful truths that followed. As time went on, Thomas and I began sharing fewer meals together. It was a sign that our schedules and perhaps our lives were drifting apart. One evening, I decided to address the elephant in the room. Thomas, we haven't really talked about work lately. Is everything okay? You've been coming home late every day. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. There isn't, he replied curtly. He used to share everything with me, but now it seemed even mentioning work irritated him. On his days off, Thomas would either sleep the day away, claiming exhaustion, or go out alone to clear his head. I could feel the distance growing between us, so I suggested something to help us reconnect. Hey Thomas, how about we go to a spa together next month during the holiday? My sister recommended a great place. A spa, he said, showing little enthusiasm. But I went ahead and booked the reservation anyway, hoping it would be a nice break for both of us. A week before our planned trip, I tried to finalize the details. Thomas, what time should we leave for the spa next week? Oh, is that next week? He said, sounding distracted. I forgot to mention, I have a business trip during that weekend. But you knew about the spa trip. We've had it planned for a while, I pointed out, a mix of disappointment and frustration in my voice. Well, it's work, so it can't be helped, he replied nonchalantly, and that was that. His department was busy as ever, sending him on business trips left and right. Reluctantly, I gave up on our plans. That weekend, as always, Thomas left early for his supposed business trip. If things had gone as planned, we would have been on our way to the spa together. Instead, feeling down about how things had turned out, I received an unexpected call from the hotel. They hadn't received my cancellation request and were calling to confirm our arrival time. In that moment, I decided to seize the opportunity and invite Judy, but when I called my parents' house, I was told she had been out all day. Feeling lost and needing some support, I invited my mother instead. I didn't expect her to agree, but to my surprise, she did. Are you sure it's okay to leave Dad alone? I asked, concerned. I'm more worried about you than your father, she replied, sensing my mood and choosing to accompany me to lift my spirits. I'm happy to take a trip like this with you. Grateful for her support, I set off with my mother, looking forward to some peaceful time together, something we hadn't done in a long while. But when we arrived at the hotel, everything changed. Mom, look at that, I gasped in disbelief. There, walking into the very hotel we had booked, was Thomas. He was supposed to be on a business trip, but instead, there he was arm in arm with a woman, one who, as they turned towards us, I recognized all too well. It was Judy. The shock hit me like a wave, and before I knew it, I was back at home, barely remembering the journey. My mother made tea, and slowly, the reality of what I had seen started to sink in. Thomas had been lying to me, and so had Judy. After regaining some composure, I called Thomas's department to confirm my suspicions. As I had guessed, they had cut back on his business trips and overtime. There was no reason for him to be traveling so much. Discussing the situation with my mother, we pieced it all together. On the nights he claimed to be working late or on business trips, Judy was consistently absent from home. The truth was undeniable. They had been meeting up all along. Anger flared inside me, drowning out the sadness. Mother, I'm divorcing Thomas, I said firmly, and I don't want to see Judy. I won't be visiting the house for a while. My mother said nothing but understood, respecting my decision. Before Thomas came home, I began preparing for the new chapter of my life. I drafted the divorce papers, signed a lease for a temporary apartment, and arranged for a new home where I could eventually settle. I packed my belongings and moved out swiftly, leaving behind only the divorce papers and a letter for Thomas at our old house. The letter was clear, outlining that all matters related to alimony and legal issues would be handled by my lawyer. Once everything was in place, I made sure to block all of his contacts, severing any chance of unnecessary communication. I chose not to share my new address with my parents, not wanting Judy and Thomas to find out. Although we still worked at the same company and sometimes crossed paths, I ignored him completely, recognizing the situation for what it was. He promptly agreed to the divorce, maintaining discretion at work about the reasons for our separation. Though our colleagues sensed something was off, they respectfully avoided the topic. 2 years passed with this distance between me, Thomas, and my family. One evening, after returning from work, I was surprised to find my mother waiting for me at my door. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, noticing the serious look on her face. She handed me an invitation, her eyes wary. "This is from Thomas and Judy," she said. My heart dropped as she revealed that Judy had moved out of our family home to live with Thomas. Their upcoming wedding was a shock, though in hindsight, maybe it shouldn't have been. They had even invited our parents, but not me. "Mom, are you going?" I asked, the lump in my throat tightening. "Of course I am," she replied, a twinkle of mischief in her eyes. But sensing my dismay, she quickly added, "I'm just kidding. Don't worry, I'm not going." It was clear that Thomas and Judy had intentionally excluded me from the invitation, fully aware that I hadn't forgiven them. Isolated from both of them, and even my parents, my spirits sank, but my mother's reassurance helped ease the sting of betrayal, even if just a little. On the day of their wedding, as I tried to push away any lingering resentment, my mother unexpectedly called me via video. I hesitated, tempted to end the call. I didn't want to see their faces. But recalling her earlier support, I stayed on the line. The video showed a slideshow being presented at the ceremony. The MC announced that it had been crafted by the bride's mother, chronicling Judy's life from birth to the present. As the pictures flickered on the screen, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything: betrayal, loss, and the painful reality that my family was forever changed. I was taken aback by my mother's unexpected technological savvy, which stirred a pang of sadness in me. "Mom, you did all this for Judy?" I wondered silently. But as I watched, something startling began to unfold. The slideshow didn't begin with photos of Judy, but with a picture of me as a newborn. The resemblance between Judy and me as babies might have confused some, but as the slideshow continued, it became clear that the focus was unexpectedly on me. The guests seemed to relax into the nostalgic atmosphere, but I noticed Judy's expression tightening. The MC began narrating. Since she was young, the bride has always been devoted to her family, a diligent student who succeeded in entering her desired university. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as some of Judy's friends and colleagues who knew her actual academic and professional history exchanged confused glances. "Ha, is that a photo from the university welcome party? Judy didn't go to such a prestigious university, did she?" one whispered. "Hey, isn't that from the company's welcome party?" another questioned. The guests' growing confusion escalated as they scrutinized the slides. "Wait a minute, this isn't Judy at all," someone remarked. Even Thomas looked taken aback, murmuring, "What the hell is this? This isn't Judy." Unaware of the growing tension, the MC continued, narrating how the bride had first met Thomas at the company where she had mentored him before becoming his wife. The slides were telling my story, not Judy's. The revelation was becoming undeniable. The slideshow shifted again, now showing photos from my wedding with Thomas. The MC's confusion mounted as the pictures told a story entirely different from the one they had expected. The atmosphere grew tense, and it was clear that something was terribly amiss. At that moment, my mother stepped onto the stage, taking the microphone from the flustered MC. "From here on, I'll take over and explain," she announced, her voice calm yet firm. As she navigated through the slides with ease, she began to recount how, even after marrying Thomas, I had supported him tirelessly in both his personal and professional life. However, as Thomas became busier, he spent less and less time with me. My mother explained how I had tried to plan a spa trip to help him distress. Wait, please, Thomas tried to interject, but my mother, undeterred by his frantic gestures or Judy's increasingly pale face, pressed on. She advanced the slideshow to a photo of Thomas and another woman entering a hotel, looking intimately close. The next slide confirmed that the woman was me. A hush fell over the room as the realization hit the guests. Thomas declined the trip my daughter had planned, citing a business trip he couldn't avoid. My mother continued. My daughter then invited me to join her at that spa, where we unexpectedly witnessed his affair. Murmurs filled the room as the guests began to piece together the story. An affair. And this wedding is for Judy and Thomas, right? Could it be that their relationship began as an affair? Questions swirled in the air, and my mother responded to the growing curiosity with unwavering composure. Thomas had promised to marry my beloved daughter, Teresa, and make her happy. Instead, he betrayed her with her sister, Judy. Mother, stop it already. Today is my wedding day. Why won't you celebrate my happiness? Judy cried out, trying to regain control of the narrative. Despite her emotional plea, my mother remained composed, her gaze fixed on Judy. She replied firmly, I've always wished for your happiness, but not at the expense of your sister's, my mother said, her voice heavy with the weight of her words. The room fell silent, the impact of her statement hanging in the air, overshadowing what was supposed to be a joyous celebration. But you were the one who ruined it first, my mother added sharply, turning her gaze toward Judy. Teresa has always considered not only her happiness but that of her entire family, my mother continued, her tone steady and stern. What about you, Judy? Have you ever thought about how deeply your actions would wound her? Judy tried to justify herself. But she always seems so happy. It's not fair that instead of being happy for your family, you're just jealous. Mother-in-law, please stop, Thomas interjected, his frustration evident. She's your precious daughter too, right? If that's the case, can't you celebrate our new beginning? Why are you doing this? I don't want to become family with someone as dishonest as you, my mother retorted, her disappointment clear. I saw it clearly today. If you intended to start a new life with Judy, why didn't you invite a single person from your own company? If you're having such a grand ceremony, shouldn't you at least apologize to Teresa first? It's selfish to invite me and her father without making any effort to reconcile. But Teresa has been ignoring me all this time, Thomas tried to justify. Of course she has, after what you've done. My mother snapped. It's only natural, but that's all in the past, isn't it? Do you think her wounds will heal in just 2 years? Do you think you can regain our trust so quickly? Don't be ridiculous. With those final words, my mother, followed by my father, angrily left the venue. I could still hear her voice through the phone. Did you see that, Teresa? Yes, and I'm sorry for reminding you of painful things. I just can't stand seeing them act like nothing happened, she confessed. No, thank you, I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. It's like you said, everything I wanted to say. That's right, Teresa. You always keep everything to yourself, my mother noted. I thought it was too kind of you not to tell your colleagues the real reason for your divorce. Later, my mother sent me a recording of her conversation with Thomas during the wedding. As she had pointed out, even with time, some things aren't easy to forget. Thomas displayed no signs of remorse, casually dismissing his actions as though they were in the past. I knew what I had to do. I planned to ensure Thomas faced the consequences of his betrayal. When I learned that he was scheduled to give a presentation at our company, open to employees from various departments, I quickly volunteered and secured a spot in the audience. As Thomas took the stage, his supervisor, unaware of his recent remarriage, commented, Thomas, you seem even more motivated today. Did you just get married? Yes, I will do my best for my family, he replied, a smile on his face, completely unaware I was present in the room. Bolstered by his audacity, I decided it was time to expose him. I played the audio my mother had sent me, detailing his affair with my sister right there during his presentation. The sudden eruption of the recording caught the audience off guard, but as they understood what was happening, whispers began to spread. Thomas, didn't you claim the divorce was due to a difference in values? Someone called out from the crowd. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, really? Did you say something like that? Well, I also can't understand a value system that involves cheating with your own wife's sister. I stood up, my voice steady and resolute. I apologize for mixing personal matters into this important internal presentation. I have decided to quit as of today. I have enjoyed working here, but I can't bear to be in the same place as him any longer. As I moved to leave, the board members intervened. Wait a minute, Teresa, one said. You're an essential asset to our company. If anyone should leave, it should be Thomas. But me, I've been expected to have a promising future, Thomas protested, clearly shaken. We had expectations in the past, they replied, signaling their shift in support toward me rather than him. The change in perception was striking. Recently, Thomas's appearance reflected his internal turmoil. His clothes were worn, and his focus at work had sharply declined. It seemed that the problem-solving skills that had once defined him were now absent. We're not expecting much from you anymore, the board members remarked during a meeting, a clear sign of their disapproval. Meanwhile, Judy, who had never been particularly adept at managing household chores even while living with her parents, had become a full-time housewife after marrying Thomas. However, she quickly shifted the bulk of domestic responsibilities onto him. As Thomas struggled with mounting challenges at work, without my guidance, his performance continued to suffer. The revelation of his affair spread through the company, irreparably tarnishing his reputation. In a decisive board meeting, it was determined that I would remain with the company due to my value and contributions, while Thomas would be relocated to a remote branch, signaling the beginning of his exit from the company. Judy, who had once enjoyed a comfortable life financed by Thomas, quickly abandoned him when she learned of his impending job loss. She soon attached herself to another man who turned out to be a freeloader burdened by his debts. As a result, Judy found herself working 3 jobs, struggling to make ends meet both day and night. As the old saying goes, what goes around comes around. The consequences of their actions had caught up with them. Watching their downfall unfold, I finally felt a deep sense of closure and the freedom to move forward with my life, unburdened by the past.